All right, party people, it's time to talk about our next project, which is self-portrait grid drawings. You are in for a treat. For our actual final, we'll have a paper with a grid drawn on it, a printed picture, and a plastic grid on top so that we can transfer the information from each little square to the bigger square on your final. So the process for this project is that we'll start with taking a photo or choosing which photo you want to do. We'll do some practice grid drawing worksheets. We'll set up your grid on your final like big paper, and then we will create the drawing with your grid. So we'll start with just like the outlines, and then we'll do shading and detail. So during this presentation, I want you to start thinking about what kind of photos you'd want to draw. I would pick something that you actually really enjoy or like because we're going to be working on this for a few weeks. So you want to make sure that you actually enjoy what you're going to be looking at every single art class. What you can do is a photo of yourself, a photo of your pet, or a photo of a family member. But you need to have taken the photo or know who did. But the photos that you can't draw for your final is a friend from this school, which people always argue with me about. They say, oh, well, they said it was fine. La, la, la. We're just not even going to mess with it. So, no one from this school that is currently enrolled. You cannot do a famous person that you found on the internet. So, you can't just go to Google and search up a name. And you cannot do a photo with a filter on it. So, your choices are a selfie, one of your pet, or a family member. Whoa, looky there. Those are all photos I could choose. There's my school photo. There's a really great selfie in there. And then there's ones of my pets. So I just really wanted to show off how cute my pets are because they're so stupid cute. So I could pick any one of those for my own final grid drawing. You want to make sure that you pick one that has like nice quality though, because if it's blurry or pixelated at all, it's not going to print out well. Before we just jump right into the final, which I know you're all so excited to get to, we are going to do some practices. So here is the grid practice worksheets that we'll be completing. Just know the more effort you put in this, the better your final is going to be. So practice makes perfect. We want to make sure we know what we're doing before we get to our final. So on here, a lot of people say, oh, I've done this before. We did this last year. La, 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 la. The thing is we didn't, because last year it was a 1-to-1 ratio. So the images we drew were the same, but it was big to big. This time we are growing that skill that we started last year, and we are going little to big. So we are learning how to enlarge a reference photo to a bigger grid. Here are the shading practice worksheets. On the top right, this one gives you an opportunity to try out different shading techniques. And then the one on the bottom left will allow you to draw with a grid and shade as well. Oh, and up next, it's student examples. Hold on tight, you're in for a treat. All right, first up are some funky looking ones. So the one on the left, it looks like she went back with a Sharpie. So that's kind of neat. And she put different patterns on different areas, but also kept it the same. So there's that option you could do. The one on the right, she's transforming into a fox, I believe. So you would follow the grid for your actual self-portrait as well as follow a grid for whichever your animal or creature you're wanting to transform into. Moving right along to these ones, which left their grid on. They just went and did patterns in each square. So they decided to do like kind of darker or closer together patterns for where it's dark, and then lighter or not as tight patterns on where it's supposed to be lighter. So with this option, it's nice because you don't have to erase your grid, but sometimes it's kind of hard to think of that many different patterns. But if this is a look that you like, I would certainly try it. Here are some more examples. The one on the left is another pattern one, and then the one on the right shows how important it is to finish your background. So our main focus is the image of the subject first, and then the background is kind of secondary, but you'd at least want to erase your entire background so it doesn't look unfinished. And wow, look at these ones. These ones are crazy. The one on the left, he's like transforming into a tiger. That's totally bananas. I do like this example a lot because of the hair. A lot of people think that, oh, it's dark hair, I'm just going to color the whole thing in really dark. Not so much. So gone are the days that you would draw hair with every single strand. No, 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 not anymore. Now we are going to look at different areas in the hair that change directions, or where the light is shining on it. So I will help you think of that and how to actually execute that. But we no longer draw hair with every strand. So those were the good old days, but now we're going to make hair look realistic. So you are in for a ride. The one on the right is pretty cool too. I like the background because he did different patterns, but he also has his name incorporated in there. So his name was Preston. And then for his face, he actually did song lyrics or poem words on there. So that's kind of neat too. But I do wish that he would have finished his eyeballs. So they kind of look ghost-like. So your eyes are not white. You need to work on that. But yeah, it's pretty nicely done though. Here we go with our last set of examples. So some people kind of scoff at this one, and I've never really understood why. Uh, I don't know if they just think the guy looks kind of goofy or funny on the left, but he did a fantastic job. On the shading, he used cross hatching instead of just smooth, which I thought was very creative. And on the hair, it was dark hair, but he clearly knew what he was doing when he looked at light areas and dark areas, and you can tell it's rounding around his head. So very nicely done. And anyone that laughs at this one, I would like to see do a better job than that, because if they could, they probably wouldn't be laughing at him because they knew how hard that would be. The one on the right is also nice, but he looks like a ghost. He did not shade anything in the face. Boo. You need to shade, and we'll do some practices to help you through that. But the one on the left, I like it way better. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about is our project agenda. So today we introduced the drawing project, but the following days will look like this. We are going to do the grid worksheet demo, and then we'll work on the worksheet, and we'll be printing photos. So I'll explain how to get me your photos if you don't want to do your school photo. Then we will create our grid on our final, and then we'll spend a day just finishing our worksheet and finishing the grid on the final and taping that clear plastic transparency onto our photo reference. So get me those photos ASAP. Then we will draw our contour lines or just our outlines for a couple days. And then, unless you're doing that grid pattern technique, you have to erase your grid. You don't want to start shading until that grid is gone, or else it's going to make your life really, really super duper hard. All right, and then we're going to push pause on our actual final, and we will watch a shading demo video. We'll do some practices, and then we'll pick out whatever shading technique you want to do, and then we'll actually apply that to your final. Whew. Oh, you're in for a treat. That's going to be so fun. And then we'll spend a couple days just finishing our shading, doing the details, because sometimes they get smudged over while we're shading. And then we'll do touch-ups, and we'll turn it in. Wow! You guys, I am so excited to see what you guys create. The last thing I want to talk about before I end this video is that I understand drawing is not everyone's favorite thing to do. It's not even my favorite thing to do in art, so I get it. I also understand that art isn't everyone's favorite subjects, which is bizarre to me, but I get it. I think y'all are crazy, but I get it. The thing is, I want you to understand is that we are going to be doing this project regardless of whether you want to or not. And that kind of stinks, but since we're going to do it regardless, we might as well actually try. I promise that if you do the worksheets and you do your grid on your final correctly, yours will look good. It will look like you, it will look somewhat realistic, and it will look good. I promise. You just have to trust in the whole process and do the grid technique. I feel like at this age, some people really start disliking art because they have this idea of what they want their image to look like. And then when they go to draw it, it doesn't look like they imagined in their head. It's very frustrating. Most people just give up. Totally get it. But with this technique, it will look like you. So just trust the process and try your hardest, and you'll be just fine. So I hope you enjoy this project and you're open-minded to actually putting 100% into your drawing.